So your hi-hats sound like I'm gonna tell you why that is and how to fix this and how to post-process hi-hats so they sound good every single time. Before we jump in, I've got something exciting to share. I just launched a 30-day music production masterclass focused on creating bass music, and it's packed with everything you'd learn at top schools like Icon Collective and San Diego State. The link's in the description, and for a limited time, it's 90% off. Plus, when you sign up, you'll get 50% off Ableton Live. Oh, and I've also started a monthly care package system that's completely free. Each month, I'll be sending you free Ableton devices and samples. Links for both are in the description. Now let's get into the video. Here we have a very boring 8th note hi-hat loop. Basically what we're trying to achieve with our percussive elements, especially our hi-hats, is we want to place them in the right spot in the mix. So we typically want them panned out because we want typically our higher elements pushed out to reserve room for our lower elements in the middle so they can be more impactful, like our sub bass and our kick. We also want to push them back, so we want to use a little bit of reverb. We want to make sure that they're not harsh, so there's no harshness kind of in the sibilance range. And we want to give them some movement and some life. But there is a rack my buddy Elgante1 made that does this pretty much perfectly. All the macros are mapped perfect, and it's called Hat Sauce, and I think it's like $5. I'll link it in the description. And it basically does all this for you. So let's listen to before and after here. So basically what we're doing here is we have a Haas effect. So we're spreading the hi-hats to the sides. A de-esser. So a de-esser is basically a compressor for the harshness range. So we can add some de-essing here. Make sure we're not getting that harshness, that piercing on our ears. Frequency. So we can be aggressive and cut out the lows with our hi-hats if they're super high like these trap hi-hats. So to make room for the rest of the mix, we can crank up the frequency and cut those out. Convolution, so convolution reverb emulates real spaces. This is important for our hi-hats because we want to place them in a room and we want to give them some reverb and push them back. So to do that, we're using convolution reverb, and this is adjustable right here. Then we have random pitch. So we want our hi-hats to have change in movement to them. We don't want them to be stagnant and sound the same every time. So this actually allows us to implement random pitch automatically. So you hear that little shuffle up and down, that's the random pitch. Then we have the pitch rate. So if we want them to change faster, we can control this here as well. So let's break down this rack and see what's going on here. So if I was to remake this, I would grab a Haas effect. Haas effect is actually a delay that delays one side milliseconds from the other. So it's actually tricking your ears into thinking something super wide. In reality, this hi-hat's not wide at all. We just made it sound super wide with the Haas effect. Then the de-esser, and you don't always need this, but sometimes you get that really piercing sound, and we're gonna come in here and add a de-esser. Just a taste, just so it's targeting that harshness range a little bit. So we can let the hi-hat shine, not reduce too much, but just get out that piercing sound. Then convolution reverb. So convolution reverb is actually native to Ableton Live. Basically what it does is it emulates real spaces. So they take the frequency response from certain places, like here's a church, and pretty much puts your sound in that spot. I like to use convolution reverb with stuff like this because it's really giving your listeners like a place that they're at. It's putting them in a spot. So I like to use a little bit of convolution reverb, pushes the hats back. And then for some movement, we're going to use a shifter. So this is a frequency shifter. And then we're also going to use a shaper. Shaper is a tool that allows us to map something to it. So we can map this to our fine and then adjust the amount. And it's going to give us just a little bit of movement here on our pitch. And this is really going to be to taste. That way it's keeping everything interesting. It's keeping the hi-hat moving. So this is my go-to hi-hat chain. I do this, and then I make sure we're coming at it in about -4 dB. So I put a Swiss Army meter. This is a really good one. And we want this to be about -4 dB quieter than the rest of our sound. So it's a little further tucked in the back. So I hope this was helpful. I'll link that rack down in the description. Thank you guys for watching. I'll see you next time.
Mark.